Welcome, everyone, listeners and viewers, to another episode of Yollab Central. Today, I'm joined with Jamal Ford, who is also known as Jamal the Maven. Why do you think our listeners and audience should be excited about our conversation today?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. So, I'm a second generation entrepreneur. And in the last 5 years, I've helped not only my consults, but also with my businesses generated roughly about $8 million. And so, I'm super excited to be here, super excited to share my experiences and help people with scaling whatever businesses that they have.
So, thanks. Since you mentioned business and entrepreneurship, right? Would you like to start with how you started? Because probably we can take that conversation from there, and then you've also got a social media whole thing going on with you. So we'll take it to that level as well. Probably we start with
Yeah,
the beginning.
yeah. So, I kind of grew up in entrepreneurship. I'm a second generation
Yeah,
entrepreneur. My mom was an entrepreneur and she really had a lot of different businesses, and all of them are still fairly successful. She currently has two daycares that she runs. She's had a clothing store. She's actually had about 11 or 12 rental properties. And so I kind of grew up in entrepreneurship, understanding how to create supply and demand, understanding how to create your own businesses, understanding how to actually make frameworks for scaling businesses.
right. So you're saying you mentioned you're a second generation entrepreneur, right? So how did that family business experience help you in your businesses? Do you want to shed some light on that? Uh,
Yeah, so it actually helped me because, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to go into entrepreneurship at first. I really, more or less, was really big into getting my master's degree in strength and conditioning and sports science and wellness, which I did from the University of Houston. And then what wound up happening was I was working in corporate wellness. And at my job in corporate wellness, I'll never forget one of my supervisors at the time had actually gotten a job offer at another hospital, and they're actually giving them a blank check to actually work there. It was like, whatever we got to pay you, we'll pay you to come here. At the time, I was also a musician, so I played music, and I was roughly about 26, 27. And as a musician, I was making roughly about 40,000 a year, but at the hospital, I was only making 35,000 a year. This is about 2020, this is about 2012. And so that was a pretty solid amount of money at the time. But I was spending 40 hours at the hospital, but I was only spending 5 hours as a musician. And I couldn't really understand because the math just wasn't making sense to me at the time. I was like, I'm spending very little time doing this, and then I'm spending so much time doing this, and I'm still making less. And so I went to my supervisor at the time, and I told him how I felt, and it was his last week there. And I never forget what he told me. He said, Jamal, you're the only person who can create the framework by which someone will pay you. Everyone else just has a sheet of paper, and they're going to pay you for what's on that sheet of paper. And it really resonated with me. And thank goodness I had the previous framework of entrepreneurship to actually understand what he was trying to tell me, where I'm the person that have to create the systems. I'm the person that has to find the people that will pay me exactly what I'm worth. There's so many people that go to a job and put all their energy and effort into the job, and they feel resentment and regret towards putting that amount of energy towards the job. But the truth is, the job is only paying you for what they put on the sheet of paper for what they need from you. They're not actually paying you for everything you're bringing to the table.
yeah,
You're the only person that can put together everything that you bring to the table as a human being and find other people that's willing to pay you for it.
right. So uh, about bringing everything that we have on the table, and you mentioned specifically systems, right? So on another previous episode, I was also being told about systems that we created, right? So can you shed, since you're an entrepreneur specifically and the second generation, so how have these systems, and probably if you want to were to give advice to somebody who's just starting out, what is the first system that they need to create when they're doing a business?
To be honest, the first systems that you should incorporate are self systems, like systems to manage yourself. Because if you can't master time, you can never master money.
Right.
And if you don't master your own time, you can't master other people's time. So I would say the first system that I would try to utilize is time chunking. So I'm a very big time chunking person when it comes to doing work. This means I do about either 25 minutes or 50 minutes of work, and then I'll take a 5 minute break or a 10-minute break. It just depends on what the task is. If the
Yeah.
task lasts longer than 50 minutes, then I break it down into 50-minute increments. And so that way I know that I'm being productive throughout the day. And I use the Michael Hyatt, I've always used the Michael Hyatt planner because it has a great time chunker in there as well as like the perfect day system in there. So it's a great framework for me for mastering my personal time. After mastering your personal time, I would say you want to master supply and demand, and you want to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, what you bring to the table.
Mhm.
So once you know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and what problems you see out there in the world, you come to the realization that entrepreneurship is just being a problem solver. And then once you realize what problems you see, then you try to talk to other people and figure out are they having those same problems. And you want to actually figure out if there's a demand for your services before you go out and create the supply.
Yeah.
And so once you do that, you then I always like to use what's called the lapse framework. So once I have the understanding that people want my product or service, I try to create what's called an MVP, a minimal viable product. So
Yeah.
something that's very framework, very structured that I can present to the world and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this at full scale. Create an MVP. Then after you create an MVP, use the lapse framework. So I'll give you a great lapse framework. Let's say I want to make $200,000 with my particular product this year. My product costs $1,000 a year. That means I need 200 people to agree 2,000 people to agree that they want to use my actual product, right? I believe that's correct. 200 people. Okay. So if 200 people agree that they want my product,
Yeah.
then I made that $200,000. Now, I always look at it at closing at a 10% frame. So
Mhm.
if I need 200 people to agree, that means I need 2,000 leads or I need
Yeah.
2,000 presentations.
Right.
So if I present to 2,000 people, I should be able to get 200 to agree to work with me, right? If
Yep.
I can't get 200 people out of 2,000 people, then that maybe I need to go back to the drawing board on what I'm actually presenting to people. So from that, so that the sales is I need 200 sales, which means I need 2,000 presentations. So how many appointments I need? Let's say half the people show up to appointments. That would mean I need 4,000 appointments. So if I set 4,000 appointments, I can get 2,000 people to show up, right? So that's the appointments. And so a lead is just a signal of interest. So how many people do I need to show me a signal of interest in my product or service to get ultimately 200 to buy? That would mean for me would be 8,000 people. So if I can get 8,000 people to show me a signal of interest, I can get 4,000 of them to set an appointment. I can get 2,000 of them to show up to the presentation, and I should be able to sell 200 of them, right? So that's what we call the LAPS framework: leads, appointments, presentations, and sales. 8,000 leads, 4,000 appointments, 2,000 presentations, 200 sales. And that's a minimal. So if I should be able to sell more than 200 people, but at the very minimum with that, I should be able to get 200 people to the actual closing table. And so that is the framework I would always start off with any business.
So I think you described the basic sales funnel here for everybody out there in the audience. So, but then in this age of digital business, online businesses, and social media, how important for you specifically or for other digital businesses do you feel has social media become for creating the first lead in this sales funnel or DAS framework that you're talking about? How important has it been?
Well, it's like the I would say is the second most important thing. The
Okay.
first the most important thing is Word of mouth.
Okay.
Word of mouth is always going to be the number one way of getting leads. Like
Okay.
other people saying that your product or service is of quality. So when you first have a product and you're putting it out there, you need to go to all your warm leads. Your warm leads are the people that you know. And even if they're not going to buy your product or service, you still should be letting them know that you're coming out with a product or service and what it does. And if they know anyone who has is interested in your product or service, let those people know. And once you make a full announcement to your warm leads, once you start making social media content, these are the people that's going to be pushing your content. So the reason warm outreach and word of mouth is important first, because even if you're making social media content, you want the people around you that support you just as a human being to share your content so you can touch more people. There's the rule of 6 degrees of separation. That means you're 6 people away from knowing everyone in the world,
Yes, that's right.
right?
Yes.
So you want to have the people that you know sharing your content, and then maybe someone else may share it, then someone else may share it. And that's the key to getting people to buy your product. Now, I know earlier I said that you want to get 200 sales, you need 8,000 leads, but there's 8 billion people in the world. And you have to understand that if you're putting out social media content, especially on YouTube specifically, because YouTube, you can get 5, 6, 700 views per video a lot easier than maybe it would be on Instagram or on LinkedIn or other platforms like that. So, and if your product costs $1,000 a person, then you're selling a more high end product, and people want to know more information about the product. And most of the time, people do research on YouTube. So that is why you would be putting content on YouTube overall.
Now, you mentioned, right, each of these platforms is different and how they're behaving is different. But there's also the thing that we need to understand as to the audience itself is also different, or probably the mind frame in which they are different. So, how have you been targeting these specific mind spaces that people are in? Say on Instagram, people are just there to scroll and probably just flip through videos or probably a reel. On LinkedIn, people are more into work and things like that, the business, we want to get into a deal or something like that. So how are you clicking through those?
So the first thing to understand when you're talking about social media content and sales, you
Yeah,
got to understand that most purchases are emotional purchases. You
right.
have to trigger an emotion from somebody to make them actually pull the trigger on buying from you, right? So, with that being said, when you look at each platform, you look at it from what emotion are people going to the platform to experience,
Hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
if I'm on TikTok to laugh, then that means I need to create content on TikTok that is somewhat funny, but still informative enough for people to want to pull the trigger when buying from me.
Hmm.
If people are on Instagram to look for aesthetically pleasing things, but still are on there to find things funny, a lot of times I would use memes. I would use memes and relate those to sales. I relate that to my product or service, and then trigger the emotion of laughter or that type of emotion, right? If people go on YouTube to be inspired to get to the next level or to scale whatever they're doing, then my content for YouTube will be inspiring, right? If people are on LinkedIn in a more professional standpoint and want to feel empowered as a professional, then I want to let them know that my product or service can empower them as a professional. And so you want to look at the emotion that each people go to each platform to experience and try to relate that emotion to your product or service and then try to make the content that you put on those platforms reflect that emotion.
But I have this question right here. I mean, LinkedIn just started introducing this 16:9 video format where you can also scroll through videos just like Instagram, if you're aware of that. And then they also have the long form option for videos, and they're trying to do everything there is. So, does it have to be that you try to do everything on LinkedIn, or then how does that pan out? Have you tried that? I have.
So yeah. So one great thing about that is, and what a lot of people don't do is the people who are in charge of these platforms do a lot of interviews. Like they do a lot of interviews on YouTube, they do a lot of interviews on other platforms. So if you know who's in charge of the platform and when they're answering questions, they're telling you what the goal of the platform is. Like if they're coming out with a new feature, if they're coming out with a new product or service, they're telling you why, they're telling you what they hope to do with it. So once you follow these people and you listen to their interviews and you hear what they're talking about, then ultimately it gives you an idea of what to do with the content on that actual platform. I will tell you this with LinkedIn, I recently started, I want to say last week, I did a newsletter. I say, well, I'm just going to start a newsletter because LinkedIn makes it very, very easy to create a newsletter. And my newsletter is about business, but it also has a nostalgia feel. I talk about cartoons I used to watch when I was a kid and relate them to political things or things that like
Yeah.
economics. Like my last actual newsletter was about the tariffs and how the United States is putting out tariffs, but I related that to a character Scrooge McDuck that used to come on this cartoon called DuckTales, which I love
Yeah.
DuckTales, but it was more like, we're they're playing a game that we're all not familiar with, and we're on the other end. So, and I think for my first one, I got like 70 subscribers to my newsletter because and that's very like it's very hard. Like these people read my newsletter and they said, "Hey, I want to read the next one he comes out with." And 70 people is a lot of people, right? Like if you look at it from social media, having 70 views on Instagram is much different than 70 subscribers on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people kind of miss. Like 500 people, if you look at a room of 500 people, that's a lot of people. And
Yes.
so if you get 500 people to watch your YouTube video, yeah, you didn't get a million views, but those 500 people were interested in your topic.
Yeah.
Those 70 people are interested in what my newsletter is going to be about the next time. And so when you talk about what to put on the platforms, how to actually utilize the platforms, and how to maximize it, you want to look at all of those factors and make sure that you're staying up to date on why they are putting these new services out. Now, I will say this to answer your question with the new video format on LinkedIn, I believe that they understand that people want to watch short videos.
Mhm.
But I think they also understand that their platform is not a platform that people come to laugh or come to like
Yeah.
joke on per se. If you're going to make jokes and laugh, it should be business related. It should be work related. It should have a, more of a professional laugh and not like out with your friends laugh. Maybe
Yeah.
um sitting around the water cooler type
Yeah.
comedy, right? And then, but still related to business. And you still going to do a 30-second clip, a 45-second clip, giving people information and then, but also entertaining them. I like to term this, I like to coin this term called edutainment.
Yep.
It's like half education, half entertainment, right?
Yeah.
Um, the platform that's been doing it for years that we don't realize been doing it for years is like Sports Center or ESPN
Hmm.
because they're educating you on what happened in sports, but there's still an entertainment factor that's in it. And you see a lot of podcasters now, they'll
Yeah.
cover sports, but they'll talk about other things in life, but they use sports as the framework to
Right.
continue on conversation. So as that framework is more entertainment than education, or even when you look at radio, right? You like radio stations would generally have a comedian on there, that have a host, that have someone reading fan responses. And the radio station will come on every morning and they'll make fun, they'll joke, they'll laugh, but they'll be talking about current events,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Yes.
So when you're making your content for social media, you can look at these things that's been out for years, such as radio, such as ESPN, and say, how can I still entertain people but educate them on what's current? So if I was to like want to make more videos on LinkedIn, I would first go to Twitter or X, see what's trending in regards to my niche, like if it's whatever it is, and then I would make, because people are looking for information about that, right?
Right.
Information is also big on LinkedIn. So I would first go on X, see what people are like talking about,
Yeah.
put a few opinions out there as far as posts, see what triggers people. And then if I put out 10 posts and two of them get a response, then I may make a video about that and put it on LinkedIn, right? Because it's what's trending, is what people want to know about. I'm entertaining them. And I already got a signal of interest on this other platform. And I know people might be interested on this different platform. So, yeah.
It's great that you brought in X, Twitter, into the conversation because uh, I've not heard a lot of, business or solopreneurs or people who are trying to brand themselves talking about getting on Twitter to specifically brand themselves or talk about personal branding on Twitter. And how it's all become all political or opinionated and things like that. But you've talked about using Twitter as a different method altogether, that you put out an opinion, get some response, and probably use that as a trigger for creating content somewhere else. How long have you been doing this and how has it worked? Have those videos been successful that you've created somewhere else? Put out somewhere else?
Yeah, so I don't create videos on X, but what I
Yeah.
do on X is, because I think it's important to understand how you can be successful on X, like, and not regurgitate other people's information and be unique in your framing. I on X and I look at what people are talking about and I do a lot of responses. Like I'm going to respond to a lot of things. I'm going to like put comments a lot and I'm going to try to bring value from my comments,
Okay.
because I believe that, to with me being in business, with me telling people how to scale business and things like that, that may not be what they're initially on X for. They may be on X to see what's trending, what's hot, what's topics. For
Yeah.
me, if I comment underneath with, oh, this would be a great strategy for marketing if you do this, 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 and this, maybe the person who owns a business who's on Twitter just to see what's trending may read my comment and be like, oh, he's right. Oh, I like the way this guy thinks about these things. And then start to follow me from there. But to assume that they're going to just read my content and follow me, that's not the purpose that they're on X for in
Yeah.
the first place. So X is more of a place where you put comment. If you have a business, like you try to frame things from business. Also, for business, I'm gonna be honest with you. Reddit is really huge for business. Like, because Reddit, so many people have problems and so many people have questions on Reddit. And
Mhm.
so if you find the right Reddit threads and you own a business that has solutions for those people and you just go answering the questions that people have on Reddit, I've gotten at least 30 customers from answering questions on Reddit. Like just taking like maybe it's a day where it's kind of a slow day for me and I got everything running on autopilot. I'm like, well, I'm just chilling. I'll just go on Reddit and start reading and just like give answers to questions. And people message me, be like, thank you so much. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you know this stuff? And then I'll send them my link. They'll book a call and then we'll get on a call.
Yeah.
So, really, I think it's undervalued comments and responses, how valuable they are. I'll be honest, like this morning, I went live on TikTok. So for
Yeah.
TikTok, for me, I do post like this interview. I'll probably post clips from this interview and post and my questions that I answer. But I get the most followers from going live. Like I'll go
Yeah.
live. And what's crazy about going live is people, I'll go live for like 30 minutes and I have 500 people join my live. Now, when I'm looking at the ticker, it may say 10, 15, only 10, 15 people, right? But when it's all said and done, it's going to say 500 people join my live. And they're going to tell me who the 500 people are. And what I do and my team do is I go and click every single one of those people and send them a message and say, thank you for joining my live. I appreciate you being there. Tell me a little bit more about you. Because those are leads. Those are
Yeah.
people that TikTok thought would be interested in my content. At the moment, they probably weren't interested in my content. They was thinking about something else. But
Yeah.
the algorithm of TikTok, if TikTok sent them to my live, that means that they've shown TikTok that they would be somewhat interested in what I'm talking about. And so when they watch my live, it might have not been the right time, but when they respond to my DM, it might be the right time.
Yeah.
So that's people that's shown a signal of interest. 500 people. Let me respond to these 500 people. Let me start conversation. And guess what? They're so appreciative that I took the time out to thank them that the next time I go live, they're going to sit there and actually listen to
Yeah.
what I have to say. So I know I kind of jump from thing to thing, but I would just want to explain
Yeah, that's
how
nice.
each platform has its own personality and how you use it. And you don't just have to just to post. Like you can comment, you can go and leave comments. Like people, if you are really on Twitter, you understand someone's going to put a post, but Twitter is the one place that people read comments. Like people are there for other people's comments. And so you're going to be the most successful with leaving great comments on Twitter. On Reddit, you're going to be the most successful with giving great answers. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So, just understanding the platform from that standpoint.
Um, we've been talking about these 500 people, right? I had this great perspective kind of thing that I just saw on Instagram and I shared it on my story a few days ago. Talking about the physical and digital thing, right? If you got 500 likes on a post, probably you wouldn't be surprised or say, just meh. But then if you had 500 people compliment you live in your day, it would be a party, right? So
Right.
that's how perspectives change, right? From platform to platform, even from digital to physical. If you have 500 people standing in front of you saying, yeah, we're interested, which means a lot, right? Rather than 500 people on Instagram or LinkedIn saying that, yeah, your content is good. So have you ever had this change of perspective, like somewhere physical and then same kind of response on digital social media, but then it was not the same?
Yeah. So, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So, just going back to that framework that I told you laps, leads, appointments,
Mhm.
presentation, sales. A lead is a signal of interest, correct? And I stated that before. A like is a signal of interest. And so you have to understand if someone likes your content, you can take that as a signal of interest in your content. And
Yes.
so if someone likes, you can use something like mini chat. Mini chat is great for that. Like mini chat, you can set up an automation that anytime someone likes your post, they'll automatically get a message from you like, oh, they like the post. Oh, thank you so much for liking my post. What about the post interested you? Or you can go one by one, see who liked all your posts and message each one of those people because Instagram gives you the opportunity to like if that's a signal of interest. I
Yes.
like this video. I'm interested in what. So now Instagram, if I send that person a message, Instagram is not going to block that message from that person because that person liked my post. Whereas if I was randomly spamming people,
Yeah, that's right.
Instagram would block it, right? So
Yes.
understanding what a real signal of interest is super important. If someone likes it, if someone shares it, if someone comments on it, you have to reply to every comment. You should, if you don't have any leads, if you're struggling to get customers, if 10 people like your post, that's 10 people that's shown interest in what you're talking about. Even if they were scrolling by and they just seen it was you and they posted, that means that that person supports you regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So let's say me and you were friends, right? And let's say you were selling shoelaces, right? And I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see your post and you're talking about shoelaces. I might not really be paying attention, but I might like the post because it's you. First thing to understand is people buy people. People don't
Yeah.
buy products,
Right.
right? So all of a sudden I get a message from you saying, "Hey Jamal, man, thank you so much for liking my post. I really appreciate it. I'm just starting my shoelace business. Do you know anybody who needs help, like who has a kid that struggles tying their shoes, or has a kid that needs better shoelaces or something?" I might message you back like, I might have a kid that has issues with their shoelaces, right? Or
Yep.
whatever. Now, this is what psychologically happens. I might be like, no, but I'll keep a lookout. Now, all of a sudden, I'm walking in the grocery store and I'm shopping, and I see this lady with her son, and her son's shoelaces look terrible, right? Who's the first person that's going to come to my mind?
Yeah.
You're going to be the first person
That's
that comes
right.
to my mind,
Yes.
because you didn't try to sell me shoelaces. You asked me, do I know anyone that has a child that has issues with the shoelaces? Now, somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm always aware, always looking for that thing, even if it's not top of mind. So I might see that kid's shoelaces. I'll be like, hey, I see your kid's shoelaces untied. I got a friend that makes shoelaces for kids. Let me send you his Instagram. And you might get a sale from that, because word of mouth marketing, word of mouth is always the most important thing. And so it
Mhm.
all relates back, even though it might sound like multiple things. All these pipelines, all the social media comes back to word of mouth, validating who you are, showing testimonials, showing people what you're trying to bring to the table. And last thing I'll say about what you said was, have I ever experienced having 500 likes or 300 likes on social media, and then having people in the community talk about it? What's crazy is, when I'm out and about, I live in Louisiana, which is in the south middle of the United States. I was in Mexico about a year ago, and I'm walking in Mexico, me and my dad, and this random lady came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, you're Jamal." And I was like, I'd never seen this lady in my life. I was like, "Yeah, I'm Jamal." She was like, "I watch all your stuff on TikTok." This is what's crazy. I went back. She's never liked any of my posts ever. Like, she's never pressed the like button. But
Right.
when I went back and see who viewed it, I seen the ones that she actually had viewed. She was from Wisconsin, which is far, far away from Louisiana.
Yeah.
So, and I've been out in the community where people have asked me for help, and they've never liked my post, but they see what you're doing. And I say that to say, people, there's this phrase that says pay attention.
Yep.
And I think we take that phrase for granted, because we say it when someone's like distracted, and we say, hey man, pay attention to what I'm saying. But remember, people pay attention before they pay money.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you got, attention is super important. Like,
Yeah.
once you have someone's attention, then you can sell them. And that's the key.
I mean, I guess that was a very prolific statement that you made. I mean, people pay attention before they pay money. I mean, probably that will be one great takeaway from this episode. So, yeah, I mean, we're top of time as well.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's a great way to concluding this thing. Do you want to share some contact details? I mean, if people want to connect with you for your business, or if some help, something like this.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on Instagram, Jamal the Maven. You can find me there. You can find me on TikTok, Jamal the Maven. You can find me on pretty much any platform, Jamal the Maven. You can Google me. You'll find me there as well. And then I have an online community called the Funnel Factory, where I give free funnels. I give people free funnels, free copy, just free everything if you join the Funnel Factory. And if you need any help scaling your business, no matter how obscure the business is, as long as it's your business and it's a part of who you are, I can help you with finding a way to be profitable in that business. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Jamal, for joining me in for this episode on Yollab Central. To my listeners and viewers, to the audience, if you liked it, leave a like. If you have some comments to make, if you thought it was inspiring, you have something to take, if you have something to ask, leave a comment, and then do like and subscribe and give us a follow. Thank you for joining in. Thanks, Jamal, for being with me on this episode. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Awesome. All right then. Thank you so much.